Hello, friends. This is your podcast on Chapter 4. We're talking about samples in the real world now. We've gone through talking a lot about a lot of abstract words and talking about a barrel with M&Ms in it and things like that. But this chapter is learning about the different problems you can encounter trying to take samples from real people in the real world. This is sort of an overview of the major concepts in the chapter. Sampling errors are anything to do with how you pick your sample from the population. So there's going to be a number of those. One specific one is random sampling errors, and that's just if I was taking a scoop of those M&Ms out of the barrel and I just happen to get more of one color than I would expect. That's a random sampling error. That's going to happen by chance every so often. And that's the thing that is accounted for by the margin of error. The sampling errors and the non-sampling errors other than that are not accounted for by the margin of error. And we're probably not going to be perfect on all those errors, but we want to be diligent about making sure we make our sample as similar to the population as possible. Non-sampling errors are things like lying, which is response bias, question bias, things like that. So we're going to go through all the different types. So when you're doing your reading, just pay attention. The different errors they give you, what type are they? The one special one you got to know is this random sampling error because that's the one that's accounted for by margin of error. All right, your homework is to read this thought question. Now, this is not in the book. I'm attaching this section of the notes to the email I'm sending you, and you got to read this paragraph. And then there's 6 questions that you should always ask. And here they are written out on one page, the 6 questions, and you can read it yourself. Who funded the study? Who conducted the study? Who are the individuals? And as you go through the words that we've already talked about, make sure you remember. All right, individuals, you should remember that, or objects studied. We've talked about that. Sample size, we've talked about that. Uh, what was the setting? That's important. We haven't talked about that. What was the exact measure of the measurements made? Remember, we had explanatory variables and response variables. So both of those things, the explanatory and the response, need to be measured. We've talked about confounding and lurking variables. So these things you should all sort of refresh in your memory when you see them again. Okay, and now the other thing that's in your notes, in addition to that page that has all 6 questions, sort of takes them 1 or 2 questions at a time and walks you through more specific questions related to that example. All right, so who funded the study? Uh, you know, what do they have to gain by the results of their study going one way or the other? So just walk through one after the other, looking at each question page and thinking specifically. And what you should be doing is just jotting down in your own words, not whole sentences, just what pops into your mind after doing the reading and then thinking about this nicotine patch question. Here are questions 4 and 5, and here's question 6. So when you get to next class, you should be prepared to share your answers with the class, the things that you thought about. And I think, at least I'm hoping, that different people will have thought of different responses to these questions. Maybe we can get a fuller picture on how we go about getting good information from a survey. So at this point, you should have read up to the first 7 pages of chapter 4 and thought about this nicotine patch question, and we'll pick it up there in class. Have a good day.